Well, we're now ready for Second Kings chapter 11. And let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. Chapter 11, verse 1. We find that Athaliah, who was the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead. And so she got up and destroyed all of the royal family.
There's been a lot of death
It has
in
been.
these last couple of chapters of Second Kings that we've looked at. In verse 2, it goes, Jehosheba, if that's how you pronounce that word. She was the daughter of the king of Joram, and the sister of Ahaziah. Took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away. In other words, took him, kidnapped him. I was trying to avoid that word there, but kidnapped him from around where the king's sons who were being put to death. So basically, she went and kidnapped him, but did it in order to keep him from being put to death. And she put him in his nurse's bedroom.
Okay.
So that's where they hid him so that he avoided being put to death by Athaliah, or however you pronounce that word.
So we find out in verse 3 that he stayed there in this bedroom. Let's say he remained with her, being the nurse, hidden in the house of the Lord for 6 years while Athaliah continued to reign over the land.
Then we go on into verse number 4. And this happened in the 7th year of Jehoiada. I cannot pronounce these words.
This is some tough things.
So Jehoiada, I'm trying to use my phonics, and sent and brought the captains of the Kerites and the guards, and they had them come to him in the house of the Lord, and they made a covenant, and they put them under oath in this house of the Lord, and they showed them the king's son. So they brought the captains and the guards in, and they showed him the king's son. That happened in the 7th year of Jehoiada.
So after they saw the king's son, he commanded them. He said, "This is what you need to do. 1/3 of you need to go, and the third of you that are off duty on the Sabbath and guard the king's house." Sorry, I lost my place here. And the other third that's going to be at the gate of Sur, and a third on the gate behind the guards. You're going to guard the palace.
So then we got in verse number 7, the 2 divisions of you, there's 2 divisions then, of you which come on duty in the force on the Sabbath, so during the Sabbath day, and guard the house of the Lord on behalf of the king. So he's got these 2 divisions that are going to come on duty during the Sabbath and guard the house of the Lord.
And in verse 8, we see that they're going to surround the king with weapons in his hand, and whoever approaches the ranks is to be put to death. So they're guarding the king here. If anybody comes up to try to mess with the king, and they're going to be killed.
So verse number 9, move on to that. The captains, they did what Jehoiada the priest commanded them to do. And they brought his men who were off duty on the Sabbath with those who were to come on duty on the Sabbath, and they came to Jehoiada the priest. They came before him.
So the priest, in verse 10, we see they gave them spears and shields that had been King David's. So those have been around a little while, and those were being held in the house of the Lord, so the temple there.
So the guards stood, every man with his weapons in hand. So they had them standing there with the weapons holding them, from the south side of the house to the north side of the house. So they were from the south to the north, which I would presume that that's going to be a Bible question right there, around the altar in the house on behalf of the king. So they were there guarding. They're ready.
So as they were on guard, verse 12, we find out that they brought out the king's son, and they put the crown on him, and gave him the testimony as to what they would do at that time to become a king. And they proclaimed this young man king and anointed him, and they all clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king!"
So then you got Athaliah, or however you say that word, in verse number 13. They heard the noise of the guards and the people saying, clapping and saying, "Long live the king." So they heard this noise, and she went into the house of the Lord to the people. So she wanted to go see what was going on.
And so when she went in there, she looked, and there was a king standing by a pillar. And according to the custom, the captains and the trumpeters beside the king, and all the people of the land that were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. And what did Athaliah do? Just like all of people that were upset in the Bible, they tore their clothes and she cried, treason, treason.
So then verse 15, Jehoiada, the priest, commanded the captains who were set over the army, which is what a captain does, to bring her out between the ranks. So bring her out, to basically put her in arrest and put her to death. Again, somebody here about to die. Put her to death with a sword, anyone who follows her. For the priest said, let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord. So they wanted her brought out to be put to death.
So verse 16, we see they did just that. They put their hands on her, took her through the horse's entrance to the king's house, and there is where she was put to death.
Okay. Pretty tragic story for her. But going on to verse 17, Jehoiada made a covenant right there between the Lord and the king and people that they should be the Lord's people, which is a very, very important thing to do. So he made this covenant between all the people, the Lord, the king, and the people, that they were going to be the Lord's people, and also between the king and the people. So
we see in verse 18 that the people of the land, they went and did some stuff against some false prophets. They went to the house of Baal and they tore it down. They tore his altars down, his images. They broke them into pieces. They killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And the priests posted watchmen over the house of the Lord. So they were making sure that no retaliation would come back over that.
So then in verse 19, he took the captains, the Carites, the guards, and all the people of the land, and they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, marching through the gate, the guards to the king's house, and he took his seat on the throne of the kings.
And what they did, all the people were happy. They rejoiced. The city was quiet after Athaliah had been put to death with a sword at the king's house. So we had some altars torn down and images broken up, and all the people were happy. So
a lot of drama going on there.
A lot of drama.
2 Kings chapter 11.
That's right. And the last verse we find in this chapter is that Jehoash was 7 years old when he began to reign.
You know that's a Bible question.
Yep, that's a good. He's young.
Yeah.
He's young.
Yeah.
So that's it for chapter 11. Stay tuned for chapter 12.